90, a Cox Media Group station.
Into. This is SportsCenter.
I'm Christine Lisi. Here's what's happening. College football's rivalry week had a little bit of everything. Third-ranked Alabama rescued its college football playoff hopes with a 24-22 comeback victory over Auburn in 4 overtimes in the Iron Bowl. The Crimson Tide moving on to face top-ranked Georgia in the SEC championship game. Jim Harbaugh finally got his first win against Ohio State as a coach. His fifth-ranked Michigan team pounded on second-ranked Ohio State 42-27. Wolverines clinched the Big Ten East and will play Iowa in the Big Ten Conference title game next week. With playoff hopes in hand, Michigan should jump a couple of spots when the new rankings are released on Tuesday, believes ESPN's Kirk Herbstreit.
I was standing on the sideline for the first half. I was really impressed with what they were doing at the line of scrimmage. So I know Alabama's up there, the Cincinnati's up there ahead of them, but I really would be surprised if they don't go up all the way to 2. And a lot of that has to do also with Alabama playing in a rivalry game against Auburn, but not being as dominating as I think probably the committee would have liked to have seen.
Our Kirk Herbstreit. Spencer Sanders threw for a touchdown and ran for another score. 7th-ranked Oklahoma State got past number 10 Oklahoma 37-33, kept alive its playoff chances. Cowboys play number 9 Baylor for the Big 12 championship. After last night's loss, Sooners coach Lincoln Riley shut down speculation he could be the next coach at LSU. 6th-ranked Notre Dame took care of Stanford 45-14. Irish likely needing some help to get into the playoff. NBA, the Suns still streaking, won their 16th straight, defeated the Nets 113-107. Phoenix's Chris Paul became the first player in league history with 20,000 points, 10,000 assists, and 5,000 rebounds.
We're back on Monday, and Jimmy Harbaugh has done it. Michigan finally beats Ohio State, and they're headed to the Big Ten championship game. What does it mean for Harbaugh and his legacy at Michigan? Monday morning on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max on ESPN Radio.
This is ESPN 690 Game Day Live.
Sponsored by the DUUUVAL House.
Here's your host live from the DUUUVAL House, Brent Martineau.
All stuffed up and filled with positivity here on a Sunday in Jacksonville. Welcome to ESPN 690 Game Day Live from the DUUUVAL House. It's good to be here once again. Looking forward to a Sunday Jags game day. And I know you're probably like, really, Brent? You are? I mean, the Jags just coming off a stinker. I don't know. I got a little reprieve over the last few days. It was good to get away. It was like a second bye week for me. I got to put the Jags down. I'm starting to think we should all work that into our schedules. A second bye week if the Jags are not going to be that good, just to get away for the stretch run. And it was kind of nice to not have shows to talk about the Jags for a few days, if I'm being honest. But, hey, we're back, excited about it. I've actually got a good feeling today. I don't know if that will help or not. I've had plenty of good feelings over the years, and that did not manifest itself nicely. Jaguars and the Atlanta Falcons coming up at 1 o'clock. The game is on Fox 30 today. We'll go over to the stadium at 11:30 for countdown to kickoff. That's on CBS 47. And we've got you covered this morning until 11 a.m. right here on ESPN 690. So our family of Action Sports Jacks networks, we get you set for an NFL Sunday, not just the Jags, but an entire slate in the NFL here on this Thanksgiving Day Sunday. Hope you had a good holiday, everybody, and a good weekend. Brent Martineau here at the DUUUVAL House. We'll tell you more about this, presented by Phillips & Hunt and Folio Weekly 2.0. And back in the Action Sports Jack studios, ready to get after it on a Sunday morning. Casey Kurtz, hope you had a nice Thanksgiving, man.
Hey, you know, I'm with you on the second bye week. With that, enjoyed the time off, but, you know, it's good to be back at the same time.
Yeah, hey, we're talking football, man. It's fun. And Thursday was a pretty good football day. You know, the Lions are just so bad.
Horrible.
Man, that was it's interesting to watch something, and then you have to remind yourself, well, that's what everybody else thinks about the Jags, right, and watches the Jags. And, you know, sometimes the Lions look better. Sometimes they don't. Here's what I will say about the Jags versus the Lions. The Jags have way more talent on their team. And so you do give Dan Campbell and the coaching staff a little bit of credit for getting those guys ready to go and giving them a chance to win at times, and you got to give those players credit. But then Campbell made some really big mistakes down the stretch, and so did the Lions. You stink for a reason, you know. I mean,
yeah.
that's I think that was summed up on a lot of different levels, you know, over the weekend. Bad teams are bad teams, from penalty-riddled teams to mistake-riddled teams. And we've got one right here in Jacksonville. Until you flip that, that's who you are. And the record says it. Jags are 2-8. The Falcons are 4-6. Falcons are not very good either, by the way. They are both coming off miserable performances. It was interesting. On Thursday, we saw it all. A Detroit team I thought should have won the game. And then an entertaining game, if you want to call entertaining 28 penalties for like 300 yards in the Dallas game, but we still got to see entertainment down the stretch and a couple of big-time plays by both teams. And then at night, the Bills just rolled. The Bills got back to being who we think they are. So what happens today in the NFL is pretty wild because we've got a lot of teams that aren't very good facing each other. We had that Thursday with Chicago and Detroit. Well, we get it here in Jacksonville with Atlanta and the Jags. They get it in Houston with the Jets in Houston. They get it in Miami with Carolina and the Dolphins. That's a lot of bad on bad here in week number 12.
Yeah, not a banner Sunday, that's for sure. Jets-Texans is on my mind because I think I'm going to have them in the parlay, just not sure which way I want to go. Looking at Jets plus 2.5 with Zach Wilson back, but unconfirmed at this point.
Yeah, I think it'll be really – they're just some bad bad teams playing each other. Doesn't mean they'll be bad games. Tell me I'm crazy, but I told you I just tweeted out my positivity of the day. And if the Jags do win this game, which is certainly a winnable game over Atlanta, again, this is a team that's played well against good teams. Not all the time, but, they have shown the ability to play at a higher level. Especially if those good teams don't play at a high level. And but the Jags also have lost just some head scratchers. Houston to start the year, certainly one of them. And the Falcons come in here and they're capable, but they're not very good. So I say if the Jags win this one, they go to 2-2 in the month of November. Which if you go 500 for the Jags in any month, that's a hell of a job. Mm-hmm. That's a big deal. We could look at it that way. Even with the stinker last week against San Francisco. I also said they'll score their season high in points. Now, you don't have to do too much. The season high in points is 23. But get the offense going in some kind of direction, potentially. And you get two tight ends that be able to run out there and catch some passes. O'Shaughnessy should be back today, along with Dan Arnold, who, by the way, really was absent last week. They never targeted him. And Brandon Linder comes back to the offensive line, which I can't believe will hurt you. It's got to help you, even though I think Tyler Shatley did an admirable job and wasn't an eyesore. But the Jags now have their offensive line intact minus A.J. Cann. And if you're going to lose one person off the offensive line, A.J. Cann probably replaceable with Ben Barch. And Barch has played decent football over the time when he's replaced Cann. So that being said, I also think Miles Jack will have the big-time game. And keep this in mind. The Jags have just forced a turnover in a football game this year on 2 occasions.
Oh,
on both of those occasions, they won the game.
That's
Miami and the Bills. So they're 2-8 when they force a turnover. So just force a turnover, and you might get a W here in Jacksonville today, Casey.
Yeah, and it's not like asking Matt Ryan to throw it to the other team is that difficult. It's not like he does it a lot, but he usually does it once a game. So forcing that turnover might be something you can do. Will be tougher without Shaq Griffin. I know he hasn't had any of the turnovers yet, but just his presence out there, I have to believe, makes when you are lining up pre-snap, Matt Ryan needs to see where he is on the field. Without him, obviously that's going to take that away. But I'm thinking Josh, if there's going to be a turnover, I'm thinking a Josh Allen forced fumble. That's kind of my thought process, maybe scooped up by Taven Bryan, gets a couple of yards on the recovery as well. So that's my thought on the turnover.
2-0 when they force the turnover. I love it. I wanted to predict Josh Allen has a huge game, but I think they're really going to give him a lot of attention. And what will be interesting in this game is we watched listen, the Jags were embarrassing on a lot of levels last week. And the game was so bizarre that against San Francisco that it was hard to tell anything else. Like the story out of that game from Urban Meyer, the coaching staff, and other, if you really look at the Pro Football Focus numbers, is Trevor Lawrence actually played a pretty good football game. Like just isolated by himself, he actually performed well.
Right.
Well, you couldn't even tell. Like the game was so just bad from the start. and it was 17-0, and it was so lopsided, and everything was just gone, thrown out the window. And even when you had a sliver of hope at 17-3, they come right back down and score right before half. It's 20-3. So it was really hard to tell of anything good in that football game. Meanwhile, for the Atlanta Falcons, we watched that one against the Patriots, and the Falcons were miserable. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were really bad in that game. The offensive line was atrocious. Now, the Patriots have probably a better defensive front than the Jags, but I'm not sure it's like unbelievably better than the Jags front. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like it's the Rams and, you got to do what the Rams did. I don't think so. I think you got to do what the Patriots did. Again, Patriots are better up front, and they've produced more, and they've been more consistent. But the Jags front is starting to come around. But Atlanta would make fixes this week over the last 10 days and try to at least identify some of the problems. You can't always fix it. I mean, you are who you are. And you got to win your battles and your one-on-one battles. But I do think they'll give some extra attention to Josh Allen. I think the thing to watch on that offensive line versus defensive line is the Jags' interior, because the interior with Devon Hamilton, Malcolm Brown, and even Taven Bryan at times has really come on in the last month. And can they get the push that allows guys like Allen, maybe Chase on, to go out and get the job done? Smoot, I would throw in there as well. So I think that's the matchup to watch here today. Casey, is that offensive line, which looks so bad for the Falcons, and the defensive front of the Jags.
Yeah, to your point, my outlasting memory from the Patriots-Falcons, besides the fact the Patriots just went up and down the field as much as they wanted to, was they couldn't block anybody for the Falcons. So I hear your point that they're probably going to want to figure out a way to stop Josh Allen. I just don't think it's physically possible on their offensive line. It hasn't been good, which is forcing Matt Ryan to make these turnovers, you could say. So I think it might be a perfect storm of this defensive line for the Jags is coming on. The Falcons can't really block anybody, and if they do try to take Josh Allen out of it, I'm fully confident that Smoot and the interior can get to Matt Ryan and at least force some havoc.
Well, here's the thing with Matt Ryan, right? I mean, Matt Ryan can't move.
Right.
Listen, he's 36 years old. He can still get it done in terms of throwing the football, and he knows what to do with the football, and he's been a very good player in the NFL. But he doesn't scare you, Now, listen, everybody at times this year is scared of the Jags. Tyrod Taylor and Tua and Teddy Bridgewater and Geno Smith have been effective, but not against the last month Jags. Jimmy Garoppolo was fine, but he wasn't a factor in the game, really. It was so many different things. Josh Allen did not play well against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Carson Wentz was just okay against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So you look at what the Jags have done since the Seattle game, especially the first half, and the quarterbacks are not just wreaking havoc on them. And Matt Ryan, it'll be interesting to see what they do against him, because he is not mobile. And he's not going to escape pressure. In fact, he found himself in trouble doing that against New England. So that is really the thing to watch. Can they do what New England did and other teams have done? I've said this a lot this year. The Jags offensive line, so many people would take. I'll tell you one team that would take them, the Atlanta Falcons.
Without a doubt.
Right? I mean, no doubt about it. And when I say that, that's what I'm talking about. Like, how much better would the Falcons be potentially with the Jags offensive line? I think you can make the argument they might be a win or two better.
Yeah.
Because their defense has played okay. They have some actually dominant players on the defensive side, which we'll talk about. And they're hurting on offense because of Calvin Ridley mostly, right? He's got he has hit the sidelines to take care of some personal issues, and that has hurt them, because you combine Kyle Pitts and Calvin Ridley, well, now you got a danger zone for defenses.
Yeah, for sure. And they have the interesting moves they made at running back in the offseason. Cordarrelle Patterson has worked out extremely well for them, but on the flip side, they bring in the running back from Carolina, Mike Davis, and that hasn't worked out. So without Cordarrelle Patterson, this team would be in shambles running the football. They have Wayne Gallman back there as well, so it's an interesting backfield they have, and their offensive line has probably played into why they have struggled. But without Patterson, this team would be horribly bad running the football. So, yeah, it's on the outside, at least without Calvin Ridley, a lack of weapons, but Kyle Pitts is dangerous, and Hayden Hurst, I believe, should still be out there making plays, and you know how the Jags against tight ends, so maybe he makes an impact today back in Jacksonville.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. I let's stay on this offense versus defense for a bit. We'll break down the other side of the ball, and because that's really to me, that's the important side for the Jags. They've got to get their offense going. But to win this game actually might be the defense and the Atlanta offensive line struggling and the lack of weapons that they might have. But you bring up, I'm a fan of Hayden Hurst. We all are fans of Hayden Hurst. He's a Jacksonville guy, and he can be very good. Now, he's not dangerous. I wouldn't say like, oh, boy, look out, right? Kyle Pitts is dangerous. They drafted him top 5 overall, highest ever for a tight end. And he's had some good games, hasn't been dominant. If you follow our show and follow us talking tight ends, which we have for a long time, you'll know that we've basically done a study on tight ends, and it says tight ends are not usually impact players in their rookie year. Now, it can happen, but it doesn't usually happen. And Kyle Pitts has turned into a good player so far this year for them. I'm not sure he's a dominant player. Like, he doesn't scare the heck out of you, but you know he's a threat. And eventually he'll be that guy, especially if they get Calvin Ridley and some other weapons. So this offense of the Falcons is kind of trying to find itself, Casey. You know, with Kyle Pitts really the guy you have to mark. And outside of that, you feel like you can handle everybody else.
Yeah.
Even though Patterson's pretty dynamic in his own right, he's also been a little hurt. He missed last week's game against the Patriots, so that made a difference. And questionable going into this one, but he should play.
Yeah, and I think he changes their team entirely because of what you can do with them. And if he's out, it may look very similar to what happened last week when they didn't have him. But with Kyle Pitts, he's been very up and he's been very down, but he is a game changer. And to your point, yeah, the rookie year tight ends have not been huge impact players most of the time, but he can take over a game with his physicality and just his unicorn-like nature. But there's been ups and there's been downs. The problem is when you're playing the Jags and you see all these other random tight end from Madden Free Agency 1 here, and they go off and have 50 yards and a touchdown, it's hard to believe that someone with as much talent as Kyle Pitts has won't take over the game. And I think if you're Matt Ryan, you've learned that without Calvin Ridley, your receivers are okay. They're not bad, but they're okay. I think Kyle Pitts needs to be read one, option one on every play and adjust from there because the Jags have been very vulnerable to tight ends for a long time.
Well, here's the deal. You know, it's interesting you bring that up, and that's been a narrative and an appropriate narrative for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They have been pitiful against tight ends. See what I did there?
It's good. Pitiful. Very good.
Yeah, very good.
Nice job.
But I don't get the sense they've been that way this year. But remind me, Gesicki had a big game.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Gesicki for Miami, or was it the other kid?
Well, Gesicki had the yards, and that random guy that nobody had ever heard of scored, I think, at least once. Hollins, Mac Hollins, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. So Gesicki, I remember the Miami game. What am I missing? The Cincinnati game.
Yeah.
Cincinnati game, yes. My point being is, I don't know if this defense is as vulnerable to the tight end as the scheme that they played over the last 8 years. And that's where this whole narrative, the Jags can't stop a tight end, came from, with that zone and that cover 3 and that 4-3 look, where there were weak spots in that for a tight end to get in there at the same time as the NFL's going to more tight end play and that move tight end. And it was a weakness. And it is. If you look at the teams that play that, even Atlanta played that kind of scheme over the years, it's tight end territory, you know. So, but I don't feel like this year has been that much of an eyesore, although we did just give you a couple examples. I mean, the tight end can be very good in the league this year, now, right, across the board. It's hard to defend. But I don't think the Jags are as vulnerable as they once were against the tight end. We'll see if that plays out today, because this probably from a skill set standpoint and a targeting standpoint is the best tight end they've played this year, and maybe even will play this year.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of looking back on it, you 4 for 67 against Pharaoh Brown against the Texans week 1. Nobody even knows who that is. Noah Fant obviously scored. Uzama, we talked about. You gave up a touchdown to a tight end against Tennessee. Gesicki, as you mentioned. And then George Kittle last week scored a touchdown. But the yards have gone down, so they have done a job of limiting, I guess, but it seems like every week a tight end is scoring against the Jags. But
yeah, that's a good call.
I guess the tight end, if you can look, if it's 4 catches for 20 yards and a touchdown, I mean, obviously you don't want to give up the touchdown, but that's not horrible because tight ends are red zone targets. So, I mean, it does work out. So if you're only giving up the touchdown and it's only one of them and not the yards, especially to Kyle Pitts, I think you can count that as a win.
You've got me now. Got to go back in the Brent Sports Bureau research committee here and figure out now just how bad they've been. Again, I'm a little scarred covering the Jags over the years. Like, we've seen it atrociously bad at the tight end spot. Like, nobody could cover the tight end. I just don't feel like it's been that eye-opening to me this year. But your numbers aren't wrong. I mean, you just said it. Those are significant impact plays when you score in touchdowns alone. So it might not be 7 for 140 and 2 touchdowns, but they've still been effective against the Jags. And the bottom line is, tight ends are effective against almost anybody in the NFL right now. And so that's why the Pitts matchup is a big one. And by the way, he's about him and Waller and probably Kelsey, but I put him in more of the Waller category of he's as much not a tight end as anybody is a tight end in the NFL.
Sure.
You know, and we all know that. He's just kind of listed as a tight end. So no Shaq Griffin today. Outside of that, the Jaguars appear to be pretty healthy. Now, everybody's still banged up, you know, from Tyson Campbell to James Robinson. But they actually look pretty good on the injury report. Shaq Griffin with a concussion is going to stay out for one more week, it looks like. And he's been very good for them. He's really done a nice job overall. So we'll see how much that impacts him. Puts a lot of pressure on a guy like Tyson Campbell. We figure a guy like Chris Claybrooks and the secondary of the Jacksonville Jaguars without Shaq Griffin, a veteran leader in that back end, and really a guy that you know will pretty much shut down a guy or at least stay with a guy. And we haven't really seen too many people have big-time days against Shaq Griffin. Metcalf caught the 2 touchdowns, but it wasn't like a 150-yard day for him, if I remember correctly. That's probably the best example of somebody beating Shaq Griffin this year. Griffin will be out. All right, let's take a break. We are ESPN 690 Game Day live from the Duval House. We'll tell you a little bit more what's going on here today. Brought to you by Phillips & Hunt and Folio Weekly 2.0. We'll be here until 11 o'clock. We go run over to TV Land inside the stadium at 11:30 on CBS 47 for its countdown to kickoff. Let's talk about the Jags offense. James Robinson, can they get him going? Trevor Lawrence, can they get him going? I think this is now the pressure falls all on Darrell Bevell. If it hasn't been already, it really is now. We talk about it next on ESPN 690.
Now, the First Alert forecast on ESPN 690.
Today, mainly cloudy and cool with highs only in the lower 60s, but still a great day to watch football. Tonight, cloudy, then a cold front will sweep through the area, clearing out our skies overnight with temperatures staying chilly in the lower 40s. Behind the cold front on Monday, you can expect mostly sunny skies with high temperatures in the mid-60s. I'm meteorologist Alyssa Pedjick, and that's your Action News Jax First Alert forecast.
The Weather Center is brought to you by Beard's Diamonds, where now you can save up to 41% off during Beard's anniversary sale.
Do you know what it takes to be a successful business owner? If so, share your advice with someone who is eager to learn from your experience. As the nation's premier organization supporting small businesses, SCORE is always looking for people willing to offer their time and expertise to mentor current or aspiring entrepreneurs. We need volunteers from all areas of business, including accounting, finance, human resources, sales and marketing, as well as legal. If you're interested in joining our team, click on the volunteer tab at jacksonville.score.org.
You've been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. You have to carefully monitor your health for the rest of your life. And you have an increased risk of developing cardiovascular disease.
Cut, take 2, action.
You've been diagnosed with a new purpose, to fight for the amazing life you made for yourself. To look that risk of heart disease square in the face and say, no, not me. You've been given a new opportunity to live. Get started at NoDiabetesByHeart.org.
The thing about comparing rates at Progressive.com is that by now you've heard a lot of ads about comparing rates at Progressive.com. We probably don't even need the words comparing rates anymore to remind you that seasoning steaks at Progressive.com is an easy way to save on car insurance, or that swimming in trousers helps you find the lowest rate. And that's the thing about foraging for truffles. You've heard a lot of ads about standing tiptoe on a cinder block. Compare rates and sing softly to a wounded field mouse and save at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations.
I'm Serena Williams. You watch me live on TV.
And I'm the dad from that hilarious sitcom you watch on demand. Thanks to DirecTV Stream, our worlds have been brought together.
And there's a laugh track.
Oh, who, them? Yeah, well, they kind of just follow me everywhere.
Introducing DirecTV Stream, the best of live TV and on demand with no annual contract. Get your TV together at directv.com.
Requires high-speed internet and compatible device. Content varies by package and location. Restrictions apply.
Hi, I'm Pauline Savigny, owner of Gracie Aerospace and a hyper-connected mentoring graduate of the Jacksonville Women's Business Center. Being a member of Jack's Chamber and involved with JWBC has provided me with many great new relationships. Success doesn't come without strong support, and the people of JWBC have provided exactly that. JWBC furthers my confidence in that deliverance by providing a strong group of women business leaders to connect with, learn from, and lean on. For more information, visit jackschamberfoundation.org.
It's a sale so big, it's been 4 decades in the making.
It's Beards Diamond's incredible 41st anniversary sale, going on now until November 30th.
All GIA certified loose diamonds, all designer settings, pendants, bracelets, earrings, engagement rings.
Everything store-wide is on sale up to 41% off.
We've brought in extra inventory just for the sale.
For over 4 decades, families have been shopping at Beards Diamonds for the absolute lowest prices. Now, to say thank you, everything in the store is discounted up to 41% off.
Nobody beats Beards Diamonds prices.
If you're popping the question soon, celebrating a big anniversary, or even shopping early for the holidays,
now you can go even bigger and save thousands.
Beards Diamonds will never be beat on price. Believe it.
Shop the largest inventory in North Florida at Never Seen Savings.
Everything store-wide is on sale up to 41% off. But hurry, these savings will only last until November 30th.
Beards Diamonds at the St. John's Town Center or at beardsdiamonds.com.
Join ESPN 690 on March 5th for the Gate River Run. Registration for the 15K, 5K for charity, Junior River Run, and the Brooks Rehabilitation Mile Challenge is now open at GateRiverRun.com. Training information is available on the website. See you at the starting line.
Yeah, I met with some of the players and Tyler Wolf, and we had 2 options. One would be come in Thursday morning and get him out of here, or else, it's really a lot of stress on the coaches to get the game plan done early. And I just thought it'd be a good change up. So did Linder. He's a guy that I rely on quite a bit. And Malcolm Brown. Those are 2 vets that I just sat down and talked to and wanted to get their opinion. And then I met with our coordinators and thought, what could we do? And it'd be a good change of pace for our players. So I see them all today. They're bright-eyed, ready to go. So I'm glad we did it.
That's Urban Meyer on the schedule. Hope everybody had a nice Thanksgiving. Hopefully this football team had a good Thanksgiving. Hopefully Urban Meyer, well, it's rivalry weekend for him, even though it's just the Atlanta Falcons, because this guy usually does well on rivalry weekend. Over the years.
They could have used him up at his old job yesterday.
They could have. Finally, Ohio State loses to Michigan. Big win for Jim Harbaugh, and good for him. Listen, I don't mind the Buckeyes, but it's not really a rivalry when you win every year, is it?
Not really.
So it adds to the rivalry, and Jim Harbaugh's, I think, done a nice job overall at Michigan. I remember where these teams are before they don't do well enough, right? And I think Florida's in a little bit of that right now, too, and that's why I'm not all on board the Dan Mullen stuff as much as everybody else, but we'll see what happens with that big-time college football Saturday. We'll talk more about it from 3 p.m. until 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and that starts tomorrow. But there's a lot of good topics like who's going to win the Heisman, the scenarios to get in the Final Four, and coaching jobs, including at Florida. So we will discuss that all week long, of course. And a little bit later on in the show, and I might move this segment up because I want to talk about it with you. Casey does Saturday Stars that could be playing on Sunday, and we saw in that game one guy the Jags should really take a look at, and Aiden Hutchinson. And so I think that'll be something to watch and talk about here. We will do that part on ESPN 690 Game Day Live from the DUUUVAL House, brought to you by Phillips & Hunt. Folio Weekly 2.0. We do it every game day here in Jacksonville. We really had a lot of fun doing this each and every week and talking Jags and talking NFL to get our day started. Long day for us on our Action Sports Jax family of networks, 11:30 CBS 47, countdown to kickoff. 1 o'clock game on Fox today against the Atlanta Falcons. Then on the Action News Jax app, we will have a post-game show right after the game, and then 10:30 on Fox 30, 11:30 on CBS 47, Action Sports Jax prime time. And meanwhile, on ESPN 690, Westwood 1 coverage later tonight, Sunday night football game. Who do we have? Remind me, Casey?
Yeah, that's a very good question.
I put you on the spot.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. Oh, no, I won't tell you because I was not on the right thing. I can tell you now. Here we go. It is Browns and Ravens.
That would be correct, yeah.
Browns and Ravens, yeah. Which, by the way, I think is an interesting game. Do the Browns get on track as they start getting healthier, even though Baker Mayfield's still kind of banged up? We'll see. All right, let's talk more about this football game. Brent Martineau, Casey Kurtz, and the Jags and the Falcons. Again, the Falcons not very good at 4-6. You know, it doesn't even feel like, to be honest, like the Falcons are good enough to be 4-6. So where did they get their wins? Well, they lost to the Eagles early in the year, 32-6. They got pounced by the Bucs, 48-25. They beat the Giants 17-14, improbably, if you remember that game. I do. Washington beat the Falcons. That was improbable that they lost that game.
Sounds about right.
The Falcons beat the Jets. The Falcons beat the Dolphins. The Panthers beat the Falcons. The Falcons beat the Saints, and that was a bit of a surprise at the time. The Falcons got crushed by the Cowboys and crushed by the Patriots. So let's go back and revisit their schedule a little bit. The Eagles have turned out to be better than, at least I thought. The Bucs are the Bucs. The Giants are not very good, so that's one win. The Jets are not very good. That's another win. The Dolphins have not been very good. That's another win. And the Saints really have kind of gone into a tailspin. And the Falcons actually led that game, if I'm not mistaken, like 24-6, gave up the lead, and then won it on a late field goal.
Yeah.
The one thing about the Falcons, though, they have been blown out a couple of times, especially the last 2 weeks. So they're trending in like the wrong direction, Cowboys and Falcons, and then even earlier in the year against the Eagles and Bucs. But in the middle there was everything's close. 3-point game, 4-point game, 7-point game, 2-point game, 6-point game, 2-point game. So really tough to figure right now. I mean, they've been blown out in 4 games, and the other 6 have been one-possession games. So it's hard. It's kind of like, listen, we know the Jags are not very good. We didn't expect them to be that great. What we don't want to see here in Jacksonville is the Seattle first half, the Houston game, and last week against San Francisco. My biggest problem with that game last week was not that they lost the football game, is that you could see no signs of progress. In fact, it was a regression. It was a big step back. And now 30% of the time they've taken the field, they've had no chance to win the game. 30% of the time. I mean, Houston, it was over at halftime. Seattle was over at halftime. This one was over, by the middle of the second quarter last week. Like, that's not the way the NFL is supposed to work. But even the Falcons have shown that they were kind of in that boat about 4 times this season. And so that's where these teams are just not very good and wildly inconsistent in that regard as well. So let's talk about the Jags offense against this Falcons defense, which the defense is much improved. They have one of the best cover guys in the league in A.J. Terrell. And he's been like Jalen Ramsey kind of good, you know?
Yeah.
And so we got to keep an eye on that. But this is really about the Jags offense. Trevor Lawrence had a pretty good game last week by all accounts. It was blah. And that's kind of what it is. The last month, he can't even get 200 yards passing. The running game is pretty much non-existent with the exception of the Colts game. But keep in mind, the running backs in the Colts game didn't really do that much. It was more Lawrence with his legs for 30-plus yards and then the big run by Agnew for 66 yards. So the Jags have to get the run game going, have to be able to move the ball down the field, and most importantly, and especially early in this game, stay in the game with third down conversions. They were actually better last week at 5 of 11, but they were inconsequential. The big one, the biggest play of the game was 3rd and 5 on the first drive, and they threw a go route basically down the left sideline that went out of bounds. They have got to be better early in this game and execute and scheme. I think there's so much pressure today on Darrell Bevell. He has got to get this offense going. You can't stink this bad on the offensive side for 5 weeks in a row. I mean, it's 40 points combined by the Jags in the last 4 games. Casey Kurtz, get Darrell Bevell going. He's got to get in a rhythm. He's got to find something. He's got to scheme it up, and no more excuses. I don't care who's hurt.
Yeah, I don't care either. I'm getting kind of sick of it, frankly, just like everybody else is. Yeah, and when you look at Atlanta, the defense is okay. I mean, yeah, A.J. Terrell has been good. Might see the Dante Fowler Jr. revenge game. I don't know. But, yeah. Look, they're just okay, and they blow a lot of games for a reason, and that's something you have to look at. Obviously, I haven't watched every single down of A.J. Terrell, but I'm going to have to imagine he's going to be sticking around with Marvin Jones. So here we are again singing the same song that Laviska Shenault and or Dan Arnold and or John Brown, whoever's like suiting up and has gloves for the Jags, someone's got to make some plays, and they've got to get open because Darrell Bevell can scheme it up. So that's a big one. But to me, Urban said earlier this week pretty much James Robinson is healthy-ish. He wasn't like a ringing endorsement, but the way I see it is you run it 30 times. If it's only 17 of them, James Robinson, at this point, I'll take Carlos Hyde because I think you run the ball against the Falcons, you win, it opens things up. And somebody in the receiver room has to make a play, whether you try to go after A.J. Terrell with Marvin Jones, but I think it's going to have to be Laviska Shenault. And then tomorrow we'll probably be singing the same song of Laviska Shenault can't get it done.
Well, yeah, and Laviska actually, outside of the fumble, showed some nice things the other day. I mean, he had 5 catches for 50 yards. They were moving him around a little bit. But, again, he's had just such a bad month overall, if you look at it, and the fumble was huge. So you can't just be like, oh, yeah, outside of the fumble. He didn't do enough to overcome that. So the Jags have to get going on offense. I really think there's 2 things on offense if I'm Darrell Bevell right now I'm looking at. And that is, all right, we've got to get the run game going. Linder comes back, so let's utilize this. Let's get to the left side of the line. Let's go behind Andrew Norwell. Let's go behind Cam Robinson, who's played pretty good football. We got a healthy Linder. Let's take that left side and run the football with James Robinson, and that's our bread and butter. If we can't do that, then we probably aren't going to function at a high level on offense. That's what the Patriots, by the way, did to the Falcons. They ran the ball. Mac Jones had it easy in that game. Last Thursday. I mean, it was easy. Go back and look at those throws. I do not understand why the Jags can't mimic that part of it because Mac had to make like 2 big throws in the game, and it wasn't like the defense of the Falcons played all that bad, but they didn't have to do much because the offense wasn't doing much. And so don't force the issue. Almost if you're the Jags, let's see if your defense can play a little bit. See if your defense can beat up that offensive line. But you run the football. You get in manageable third downs. You scheme third down plays because Josh McDaniels schemed up third down plays and other plays for Mac Jones to make it easy against the Falcons. I'm like stealing that playbook if I'm Darrell Bevell.
Yeah.
And because the Jags are not that different anyway. And then I'll add one more wrinkle. The Jags actually have 2 tight ends like the New England Patriots. In fact, I'm not sure Jonnu Smith even played in that game. And I was up in New England this week, and they're not actually happy with Jonnu Smith. I mean, he's really been disappointing for them. Hunter Henry's been very good, especially he went through that span where he scored like 6 straight weeks. So he's been very good. But the Jags have something today that I don't recall ever covering here in Jacksonville. They have 2 capable tight ends in the passing game.
Yeah.
Like, this is a team that we're like, the tight end room stinks. The tight end room stinks. You know what? It has. But guess what? It's actually maybe a strength of this football team right now. And I don't know what that says, but you've got Dan Arnold, who we know, and I will continue to say this, Dan Arnold might be the only mismatch on this football team on offense. James Robinson's your best player, but the only mismatch that you have is the speed of Arnold. Well, James O'Shaughnessy's a pretty good player. Like, he's not this Pro Bowl caliber player, but he's a good, reliable player, and he can catch the football. And if he stays healthy, he probably would have himself a nice career, but he's been hurt all the time. So you now have 2 tight ends, Casey. If I'm Darrell Bevell, I'm scheming around the run game and those 2 tight ends today to make things easy on my quarterback, convert third downs, get in a rhythm, and then when I have my chance to take a shot, I take my shot.
Yeah, and I might have a heart attack if I see Dan Arnold and James O'Shaughnessy both running routes. What a moment it will be. The crowd will erupt. I can't even imagine what it's going to be like in the stadium if they even just run routes at the same time. But here's the thing. All good. Love the 2 tight end set. Here's the problem. Got to target them. Obviously, Dan Arnold didn't even get a target last week. Not sure what the deal with last week. Not sure what the deal with that is. But if you're going to work them, you got to target them. So Dan Arnold has been a mismatch against all odds. And if the Falcons look at that and maybe point him out at the start of the play, you still got James O'Shaughnessy in the 2 tight end sets. So what an incredible moment for Jags fans. You run the ball, you throw it to the tight ends. We might, and we as in Jags fans, might feel like we're watching a real football team today, Brent. There is a chance, no guarantee, but there is a chance.
I mean, it would be something to see. Like, I don't know how they're going to utilize it, right? I don't know what kind of sets they're going to do. I really don't know how much they can rely yet. Like, I'm this big believer that Linder will be a little different in this phase because they wouldn't have put him in if he's not ready. They thought he might even play last week. And same with O'Shaughnessy, so they gave him an extra week. And so I'm not always convinced, like, hey, guy comes back in, bam, you can rely on him. I think that's dangerous to do. But the bottom line is you can have the threat of it. Now, Deion Jones is a good player for Atlanta.
Yeah.
And so keep an eye on that. But I'm telling you, I'm not, like, excited about it because I can't be. They haven't given me enough to get excited about. But I am, at least in my mind, like, this is Darrell Bevell's job. Darrell Bevell is like, basically, I'm not this guy because I'm not Mr. Fix-It. But, like, the TV is broken, like, 10 years ago, and you're in your garage and you got to figure out how to fix the TV, and you only have so many parts, right? That's how engineering works. Right? That's how people create things and make things, and that's how we've learned to live off the iPhone. All right? That's what an offensive coordinator is. An offensive coordinator is somebody who says, okay, I got this quarterback who can really do a lot of things. And by the way, I might want to run him a little bit more now because we're getting later in the season, and we need to start doing something on offense. I've got an offensive line that I think I can rely on for the most part. They'll give up some plays, but I can rely on. I've got 2 tight ends, which, quite frankly, I've never had in Jacksonville that we can rely on. Got Marvin Jones, who we spent a lot of money. He's going to probably be shut down today because the guys are playing good football opposite of him, and they'll take him out of the game. I got Laviska Shenault, who, if the dang guy could just hold on to the football, we could really do a lot of things. So we just got to hope that he can hold on to the football. And you got James Robinson. Yeah, he's still not 100%, but we know what he can do, and even at 80%, we like what we can do with him to keep defenses honest. I mean, that's what you do. I mean, Darrell Bevell's in the garage all week, you know. Hopefully he didn't eat too much turkey and spent more time in the Jags headquarter garage trying to say, what can I do with these parts? That's his job. And really for the listen, you'd like to have ETN and Chark as well. You don't. But what now can you alter your offense to say, all right, I'm not going to have my guy on the outside most likely. I'm going to keep Laviska inside. I'm going to have these 2 tight ends, and I've got a healthier, the healthiest yet over the last month, James Robinson, to go along with a quarterback now who I think can handle some of these things. That's it. Now do it. Make the plays, make the calls, and you got to hope they execute. But I think this is all on Darrell Bevell taking the parts and trying to fix it, and for 3 hours on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter how good the parts are. You got to figure out how to make it work. I'm not an engineer, but at the end of the day, it is your job. And I say we're, but mostly you, but we're all doing our jobs. You know, everybody listening has to do their job, and this guy has to figure out how to do it. And if it takes a little Thanksgiving work, that's what it takes. But this is the NFL. These guys are talented. They may not be as talented as some other teams, but they're definitely talented and deserve to be in the NFL. So got to figure it out one way or the other, and especially with your quarterback who can probably make these guys better if just given the right opportunity. Got to figure it out, Darrell Bevell. We need you to do your job just like the rest of Jacksonville.
Yeah, and by the way, it's one more thought on the offense, and we'll take a break and we'll keep talking about other things around the NFL too. The Jags, I jokingly said this with James Robinson on Jags Report Live last week. And by the way, come on out tomorrow night to Sneakers, hopefully after a win, 7 o'clock on Fox 30. But at Sneakers in Jax Beach, James Robinson will be there. And I jokingly said, hey, man, if you were a team player, you would have allowed Trevor Lawrence to play action pass and get that touchdown late in the game against San Francisco. And, I mean, we were just laughing about it. But the reason I say it is in part Darrell Bevell has to kind of get the quarterback off the touchdown drought schneid. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't thrown a touchdown, your stat, and by the way, we're kind of both on this last week, but since Halloween.
That's correct.
I mean, that's a month. Now you're going to go more than a month. You know what? That becomes a narrative. People start jumping on that. Oh, man, he throws a pick today. He's got 8 touchdowns, 10 picks. No, you want to get on the other side of that. Because, to be honest with you, he's limited his mistakes a lot over the last 6 weeks. But he also hasn't really elevated and taken a chance and thrown touchdowns. I mean, that's a long time in the NFL to go without throwing a touchdown when you've played the games. I mean, he's played every snap, albeit maybe 3 of them that Beathard came in for the one time. So, I mean, I think it's almost, yes, it's important to win the game. And by the way, it's a big game because then you go to L.A. and Tennessee after this. So if you're going to try to find wins, this is a findable win. It's important to get your offense going in some direction, develop the rookie. But it's also important to get the dang kid a touchdown.
Please.
Like, they have got to throw a touchdown pass today. I think that's actually carries importance, these little milestones. Like, that's why it would be so nice. Is this the day Trevor has a 3-touchdown, no-interception day, or even a 1-pick day? 3-1. Like, that kind of day. Keep in mind, he hasn't thrown multiple touchdowns in a game this season since the opener.
Now you're asking for too much. Now you're asking for too much. More than 1 touchdown? Come on, Brent.
Well, keep in mind now, and we asked for turnovers, and they got 3 in one game against the Bills.
That's a good call.
Three's a good number. So anyway, they've got to get the offense going. They've got to get Trevor going, and they've got to start. Stats don't say the whole story, but they do kind of form the story. And they also do tell a little bit of the story. Jags' offense has been anemic, and we're in week 12 in late November, and Trevor Lawrence has 8 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And by the way, Jared Goff, 2 on Thanksgiving. That gets us to 38 quarterbacks since Trevor Lawrence last threw a touchdown. Thrown one.
Yeah. And does he have the least amount of touchdown passes in the league for, like, a regular quarterback? I'm assuming Zach Wilson missed a month now, Justin Fields didn't play every game.
I think the competition would probably be with Jared Goff, right? He only missed 1 game.
Yeah.
Let's see.
So maybe, now he's played that extra game. So Goff would be, you don't even have to look it up. You get my point. If we're even discussing it, he's in that.
Goff has 2 more, so we're doing that.
So there you go. I mean, get to 10 touchdowns, right? Get to double-digit touchdowns before you get to double-digit interceptions would be a nice victory today for the Jags and might lead to victory, actually. All right, we'll take a break. ESPN 690 Game Day live from the DUUUVAL House, presented by Phillips & Hunt, Folio Weekly 2.0. We got more to come, including what else happening in the NFL. Again, it's kind of like the Stinker Bowl on a lot of these games, but can we find some good ones? Well, we'll let you know when we come back. Action Sports Shacks on a Sunday morning in Jacksonville on ESPN 690.
Mom, can we have some ice cream?
I've got a better idea. Who wants to help me make something fun and healthy instead?
Eating smarter is easy and delicious. Interested in receiving healthy recipes and a whole lot more in your email? Then register at healthiestweightfl.com and learn more about all the small steps that you can take on the way to living healthy. This message is sponsored by the Ounce of Prevention Fund of Florida, the Florida Department of Health, the Florida Association of Broadcasters, and this radio station.
Nights of Lights dazzles with more than 3 million lights in the historic district of St. Augustine. Now imagine doubling those lights as they reflect off the water during your tour with Redboat Tours. Avoid downtown crowds by boarding at Beach's Restaurant Marina at 250 Volano Road. Then sit back and let Captain Tony and Miss Jennifer take you on a tour you'll never forget. Don't settle for imposters. Make no mistake, Redboat Tours is St. Augustine's only USA Today Reader's Choice Best Boat Tour 3 years running. Book your Nights of Lights tours now at redboattours.com.
It's Thanksgiving, and we all know what that means, football. And nothing goes better with football than turkey. BetOnline.net has you covered all holiday season. More props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline.net remains your #1 spot for all the sports info this Thanksgiving. And it's not just football. BetOnline.net has up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, even your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline.net. We're stuffed with deals this Thanksgiving.
On average, an artificial limb for a child starts at $5,000, and the first prosthetic for an adult can cost up to $50,000, making it nearly impossible for disabled children or veterans to afford the limb they need. At Life Giving Limbs, we cover the cost of these prosthetics, giving recipients a chance at receiving a new limb and a new start on life. Please help by donating now. Visit lifegivinglimbs.com or call 469-601-8523.
After a long day, having my dogs greet me at the door with their silly smiles and wagging tails makes me happy. I want to keep that joy with me for years to come. That's why I trust Forever Vets Animal Hospital to keep my pets healthy. Forever Vets was voted 2019's Best Vet in Jacksonville Magazine's Readers Poll, and it's easy to see why. The affordable wellness plans are tailored to meet all of your pets' changing needs as they grow. Open 7 days a week, Forever Vets friendly staff is available to treat you and your pet with care. They combine extended hours with online booking to allow you to give your pet quality care while accommodating your schedule. Go online to forevervets.com to find which of their 9 locations is nearest you. And don't forget their newest location in Bartram Market. Forever Vets Animal Hospital, keeping your pets happy and healthy forever.
Do you have a passion for sales? Are you known for building strong relationships? Do you love to compete and win? CMG Jacksonville is searching for a talented individual to join our family as a media consultant. This position will require a committed person who will forge great relationships with Jacksonville's business leaders and develop profitable campaigns for advertisers. If your talents are a match, email your resume to jaxjobs@cmg.com. That's JAXJOBS@cmg.com or call 245-8732.
I think it's a gradual, you can see him in practice. He's practiced a little bit more. 2 weeks we didn't practice at all. Last week, minimal practice, and now he's practicing some. So it's just a pain threshold thing. It's also a guy like James, you could see last week, he just didn't have the same juice that he normally has, and that's going to come the healthier he gets.
That is Urban Meyer talking about James Robinson. They could really use James to get going today. They got to commit to it. They got to, by the way, stay in the football game so they can commit to the run. If you keep in mind, Indianapolis and San Francisco, 17-0 games, 17-0 deficits. Well, they lost both. They actually had a chance against Indy miraculously. You don't win games in the NFL falling behind 17-0. It totally takes you out of everything you're trying to do, and especially when you're really not that good. You know who wins games down 17-0? Maybe like the Chiefs, maybe the Bucks. They're good enough to do it. The Jags are not good enough to do that. They have got to get off to a better start. And I told you this last week, Casey. This would become a narrative. Get off to a better start. In fact, I thought it would be more of one this week. But Seattle, Indy, San Fran, with the exception of the Bills game, the Jags' last 3 games, the starts have been absolutely brutal. 24-0, 17-0, 17-0. I mean, you have no chance to win those games. And like I said, miraculously, the Jags actually had a chance to win the Colts game. So keep an eye on the start today. The Jags have got to get off to a better start in the football game and give themselves a chance to run James Robinson and stick with a game plan that they put together all week long. Brent Martineau here, ESPN 690. Game Day live from the DUUUVAL House, presented by Phillips & Hunt and Folio Weekly 2.0. Always a charitable effort as well that the Dollars support here at the DUUUVAL House, and we're at the foot of the Hart Bridge. The Teal House. You go by, say hello, but also stop on by. And there's raffle tickets, and you can go to the bar, and any tips go to the charity of choice. And this week it is the Empowered Kitchen. And if you don't know about the Empowered Kitchen, it says it's training, mentoring, and empowering, providing women independence through a career in the food industry. It's a Northeast Florida nonprofit, so you can go learn more at theempoweredkitchen.org, theempoweredkitchen.org. So they got a little food truck out here as well, and part of their program. So hopefully you can come on by, check it out, and all the proceeds go to the Empowered Kitchen. All right, let's go around the NFL and what else is happening here on a Sunday. And I said it's kind of like it reminds me of Florida and Florida State playing yesterday. There's a lot of those kind of games.
Yeah.
Where bad is bad. But there's also some big ones. Right down the list, Steelers and Bengals. It's a huge game. Like, are the Bengals really good? Because I'm not sure the Steelers are. And the Steelers could go to 5-5-1 and really lose some traction in the AFC North. The Bucs and Colts. How good are these two teams? The Colts are coming on. And huge performance against the Bills. Can they back it up with a big-time performance against Tampa? And by the way, if the Bucs lose, they go to 7-4, and they really start positioning for the number 1 spot in the NFC. Meanwhile, the Colts put themselves right in the conversation, especially because the Titans play the Patriots, and the Titans are without, like, everybody, Casey.
Everybody.
Check your fantasy lineups. The Titans are really banged up. I think I saw they have had 84 roster moves this year, and somehow they're still in first place.
Well, I mean, yeah, they're holding off the Colts somehow, and I don't know if that will continue today because the Colts, I don't even know if I should say the Colts, Jonathan Taylor himself is just beating teams. Last week, 5 touchdowns. So that's an interesting matchup because the Bucs are really good against opposing running backs in the running game. I looked last night just kind of checking the stats, and the Bucs don't give up rushing yards at all, pretty much, period. And you've got maybe the MVP of the league who won't win it, but still the most valuable player of the league is Jonathan Taylor and what he's doing for the Colts. So that's a fascinating matchup. But, yeah, the Titans, A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, Derrick Henry, just anybody that you've ever heard of and potentially have bought a jersey from is probably inactive today for the Titans. It's going to be a tough one against Mac Jones.
That is really true. I mean, that is crazy, man. I mean, but again, you got to give Rabel credit. They have established they win. I always have a hard time with the Titans because I don't think they're very good. Like, even with those guys, they're good, but they're not, like, wow good. Like, the Bucs look wow good. The Rams on paper look whoa, you know? Like, the Titans don't look like that, and they find ways to win. Now, listen, this is a game I think if they were healthy, I'd maybe consider them beating the Patriots. But I don't think they're going to do it with all those injuries. Too much to ask. The Patriots are playing awesome football right now, and that's another team that I'm like, I don't know if they're going to be a factor late, but they're in first place right now, so they've got to be a factor right now. I just don't know if they've got the goods to keep this rolling. They are playing really good football. The Titans were doing that for 6 weeks. They were winning, and I was like, but are they really going to be a factor later on? I don't think so. I kind of feel the same way about the Patriots. Is somebody going to make Mac Jones do something, right? Like, do something like special and out of his comfort zone. Nobody's really asked him to do that from a defensive standpoint because the Patriots are playing such good defense and they're running the football so well. And so Max had some nice moments. Absolutely, he's played really good football. But can he do that? I think his one moment came in the comeback fashion. He almost did it against Miami. They fumbled it away. That wasn't his fault. But also against Houston. And so I don't think the Titans are equipped to do that today, really is the moral of the story. There. We got 2 big ones, okay? We got the Rams and the Packers. If the Rams lose, now the Jags go there next week. If the Rams lose, that's 3 in a row, man. Mm-hmm. They're coming off a bye. Have they figured it out? The Packers, if they lose, that's 2 in a row. So this is a huge game at Lambeau today.
Yeah, and just if you I'm not a first alert meteorologist. There are 4 of those, and I'm not one of them. But yesterday in Michigan, I know that's in the general vicinity, it was a snowstorm. So I don't know what the situation is up in that part of the country, but I'm sure the Rams coming from sunny SoCal are going to be thrilled to go play where it's like 30 degrees and snowing. So, yeah, give me the Packers all day in that one with that advantage. Obviously, Matt Stafford has done it, but on paper, that just looks brutal for the Rams having to go there in that weather and try to win a football game against a very good Packers team. So it might be 3 in a row for the Rams, and they might be in trouble, especially with Arizona in that division.
Well, I would bet the under. It's 47 points, but the Rams are 2-point favorites. How about the Packers in late November at home are underdogs despite having a better record than the team they're playing?
And I don't understand that one. Recently, yesterday, there was a lot of very questionable spreads that I was not complaining about. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm saying. Don't fix it. But I don't know what's up with that one. I don't know. I can't imagine the underlying reason for that one. Obviously, Aaron Jones is probably not going to play again for the Packers, but A.J. Dillon's been the guy in that backfield. So I don't get that one at all, but thanks for letting me know about that, Brent. I might have to check that out in the commercial.
Yeah, you might want to do that. All right, let's take a commercial break. And I got a couple more games I want to highlight, though, before we're done talking about the rest of the NFL, plus some of our Saturday stars. ESPN 690 Game Day live from the DUUUVAL House right here on ESPN 690 on a Sunday morning. We'll be right back.
Got a business trip, long weekend, or maybe you just really want to try that new Toyota before you buy it? Then get it all when you rent a Toyota from Arlington Toyota. With easy online reservations and rental rates as low as $19.95 a day, there's nothing stopping you from hitting the open road in a new 2021 Toyota. So rent a Toyota from Arlington Toyota. Try it before you buy it and reserve your rental online at arlingtontoyota.com today.
In today's world, there's a lot of ways to know what's happening. At Action News Jax, we make sure our local stories have more detail, so you get every angle that impacts you. We dig for answers because you deserve the whole story. Taking time to provide context so you're clear on what's really going on. Because we know information is thrown at you 24/7. And we want you to know that Action News Jax is local coverage you can count on.
I'm Marcus Roberts, a jazz pianist and a proud graduate of the Florida School for the Deaf and Blind, a state public school available at no cost to eligible K-12 Florida students who are deaf, blind, or both. FSDB prepares students for a lifetime of success, allowing them to do more, be more, and achieve more. For more information, call 800-342-3732 or visit www.fsdbk12.org.
Join ESPN 690 on March 5th for the Gate River Run. Registration for the 15K, 5K for charity, Junior River Run, and the Brooks Rehabilitation Mile Challenge is now open at GateRiverRun.com. Training information is available on the website. See you at the starting
from
line.
the ESPN 690 Anajar and Levine studios. Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Call 904-600-4000. That's 904-600-4000. ESPN 690. Jacksonville's home for ESPN Radio. WOKV Jacksonville. Listen live everywhere you go on ESPN690.com. ESPN 690, a Cox Media Group station.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Christine Lisi with the latest NFL injury news for this Week 12 Sunday. Packers running back Aaron Jones wants to play in today's showdown against the Rams, listed as questionable with a knee injury. Green Bay, though, not likely to make a final decision on Jones until pregame warm-ups. Quarterback Aaron Rodgers playing despite that toe injury. He could have a long day against LA's D-line, says ESPN NFL analyst Jeff Saturday.
If you can get pressure with your front four, which I think the Rams defensive front is betting on with Von Miller and Aaron Donald and Floyd and, continue Joseph Day. And I mean, they have guys who can press the pocket. It makes it difficult. Now add on the injury to Aaron's toe and him having to manipulate the pocket or break, contain, and get outside.
Jeff Saturday. Giants running back Saquon Barkley expected to play versus the Eagles. 49ers running back Elijah Mitchell expected to play against the Vikings. Ravens receiver Marquise Brown likely plays against the Browns in the Sunday night game, barring a pregame setback with his thigh injury. College football. Following last night's loss to Oklahoma State, Oklahoma coach Lincoln Riley reaffirmed his commitment to the Sooners, said he was not going to be the next head coach at LSU. Meanwhile, outgoing LSU coach Ed Orgeron announced he won't coach the Tigers' upcoming bowl game. Offensive line coach Brad Davis will be interim coach for that matchup. Back in October, LSU and Orgeron announced they'd reached a separation agreement and he won't return next season. He is set to receive a $17 million buyout. Arizona State coach Herm Edwards will return in 2022. New Mexico State to announce it'll hire Jerry Kill as its next head coach.
We're back on Monday reacting to some big matchups in the AFC as the Patriots look to continue their push to the top and the Browns fight to get back in contention in the AFC North. Monday morning on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max on ESPN Radio.
This is ESPN 690 Game Day Live, sponsored by the DUUUVAL House. Here's your host live from the DUUUVAL House, Brent Martineau.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Sunday morning in Jacksonville. We have week number 12, I think it is.
Sounds right.
Is that right? Week 12 of the NFL season?
Yeah.
The bye weeks start confusing
Because college was 13 and our picks are technically 13, so yeah.
There we go. All right. So it is a nice morning. Again, listen, we can't guarantee the football quality. We usually can guarantee the quality of the weather here in Jacksonville in late November. Last week was beautiful football day. Today the same. Very comfortable. Sun keeps popping out now and again. It'll be a great day at the stadium. For everybody who complains about the September games, well, come on down for November because it will be beautiful weather in that regard. And by the way, won't see as many Falcons jerseys as 49ers and Bills the last time I was on these front steps here at the DUUUVAL House. The Falcons will not travel. Well, I did just see a couple of jerseys, but again, It won't be I can't imagine there's going to be a huge crowd in there today. And I guess the good news for Jags fans is you won't see it covered with Falcons colors like you did last week with the 49ers, which still stunned me. I remember on this show saying, I don't think there'll be that many.
Yeah.
And I was surprised by it, but I shouldn't have been surprised by the 49ers fans just because this is the first time they'd played here in 16 years. And you got to remember now, 5 Super Bowls for the Niners? Anybody, I said this later in the day, it's like anybody who's a Niners fan from 300 miles away came to this game last week. So it actually makes sense. And meanwhile, Jags fans are selling their tickets and trying to get some money back because the product hasn't been good. And by the way, can't blame them after watching that last week. So that
you do
was
what
tough.
you got to do.
Hopefully the Jags play better here today in Jacksonville. ESPN 690 Game Day Live. Brought to you from the DUUUVAL House, brought to you by Phillips & Hunt and Folio Weekly 2.0. The Empowered Kitchen is today's beneficiary of the dollars raised for charity. I was talking to Teresa Spencer, who heads up a lot of this here at the DUUUVAL House, and she was talking about a toy drive that will be the highlight of the next home game on December 19th, where there'll be over $10,000 worth of toys that they'll eventually hand out. So that is very cool. So this isn't just about football. It's also about giving back for Phillips & Hunt, Folio Weekly 2.0. And good to be a part of it. It's fun talking Jags in the NFL here on a Sunday morning, each and every home game of the Jags. All right, the Rams are favored over the Packers. Have you gotten over that yet? Did you put something in the break?
Yeah, we're in.
All right, good.
It didn't take much. We're in.
What is it, 2 points?
It's 2.5.
2.5, so it keeps going.
Yeah, I
mean, is the toe that big a deal for Rodgers?
No, I know. I'm not going to lie to you. I can't really understand this one. And the money line's plus 110 for the Packers. I looked it up. It's 32 degrees. Looks like it won't snow, but still cold. Brent, don't have an explanation for this one. Might have one tomorrow. Maybe we'll know, and we'll talk about it at 3. But, yeah, I'm in. I'm all in on the Packers, so go, Pack, go.
Well, there's a huge 5-5 game with Minnesota and San Fran.
Mm-hmm.
That is a good game because I feel like San Francisco is coming on. Minnesota's the best 5-5 team out there.
Agreed.
Right? I mean, they easily could be 8-2. That is not a stretch. And so I think it's a massive game because it's a momentum game. Minnesota gets the big win over Green Bay. Do they know how to deal with positivity, right? That's a problem for some teams, believe it or not, and to get on a roll. And Minnesota is one of those, I'm telling you, Zimmer, the guys that I just can't put him down as a good coach because I think he's playing with so much talent and he loses so many football games that they should win. And whether it's his fault or not, it's got the Anthony Lynn syndrome where they just don't win for some reason, even though they're talented and in every game and maybe should win more than they lose. And so Minnesota, I can't trust them. San Francisco now, Jimmy Garoppolo has been playing well for a month. They are getting a lot healthier as the season goes. And for some reason, I've still got this blind faith in Shanahan and everything else. I don't know if Shanahan outsmarted everybody last week in Jacksonville. I think they got a little lucky on the defensive penalties. And, I mean, Jack should have been off the field 3 times. I'm not even sure, San Fran did everything wow, look at that. But they do have a dynamic player in Deebo Samuel right now. And Nick Bosa on the other side can really ruin games. And Garoppolo's playing good football, and they're running the ball with whoever's back there. And most of the time it's Deebo Samuel. He had 1 catch last week. He had 8 carries for 79 yards. I like San Francisco here. I was wrestling this one with Ty yesterday. He kind of likes Minnesota. I like San Francisco here because they feel like the hot team, and I feel like I can trust them more to take. They feel like them in Indianapolis feel like they're really coming on right now.
Yeah, I'm with that. I think it's a tough call because Minnesota obviously plays really good defense at home usually, but then on the road they do things like giving up 28 points to Carolina, who that seems crazy to think of now, and they gave up a bunch to the Cardinals, which isn't that surprising. But they give up points on the road, not so much at home. The problem is they're on the road, and they have to go to California, so that's a tough trip as always. I do like the matchup. If I had to bet on it, I think I would roll with the 49ers. I just think they're hotter right now, and I think the Vikings, to your point, I think they'll just find a way to lose if it's close. So that's my problem with them, and that's why I would kind of lean towards San Fran.
Yeah, and one more game to highlight, and I think it's a big game. The Browns are getting healthier, right, with Chubb and Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, Kareem Hunt will play today, by the way.
Yeah, so now Baker's not healthy, but if their running game is healthy, that's usually a good thing. Baltimore's a tough team to figure. Now, Lamar Jackson didn't play last week, so they beat Chicago without him. It's a good win. It's a huge game in the AFC North for the Browns. And so I keep an eye on that game for the Browns. I think now that they feel healthier, again, some teams get hurt and it changes their team. We're going to see that with who just went down Thursday night. Oh, Tre'Davious White for the Bills, right? I mean, that really hurts their football team. You take a lockdown corner. I'm not saying they can't do great things, but that really hurts them. Meanwhile, other teams like San Fran and even not Indianapolis, but the Browns are starting to now get some players back and might look a little bit more of what they looked like early in the year, like the Browns. So I don't know that because, again, I'm not a trustworthy Browns guy,
right.
much like Minnesota. But Baker Mayfield needs to play better football, even though he's banged up. And maybe the Browns steal a win in Baltimore. I've got my eyes on that one a little bit. That AFC North is fascinating. Here we are in late November talking about that. Brent Martineau, Casey Kurtz here on a Sunday morning. Sun is shining. And Trevor Lawrence walking by right now, right behind us. There he goes.
Nice.
Trevor needs to have a big day.
Yeah.
We got some 16 jerseys. I like that.
How's the Jersey Bingo going, by the way?
Jersey Bingo not good today.
Okay.
We got Julio Jones for the
Shocker.
Falcons. He doesn't even play there anymore.
No, come on, people.
I forget what the other person even had on. Probably was like Matt Ryan. I've seen 2 Falcons jerseys.
Really? Wow.
That's it. 2.
Huh.
And so I got more Jags jerseys today than Falcons jerseys, which is kind of nice since we're in Jacksonville.
No, I'm with that for sure. I just thought you'd see some Kyle Pitts, Gainesville and all that.
That's a good call. Yeah, I haven't seen that yet, but we'll let you know if it gets any better in the Jersey Bingo game. So far, pretty slow morning. Hey, something that we talk offense and defense of the Jags all the time, but what about special teams? And the one player that really has been the shining moment of the football season for the Jags is now gone, and that is Jamal Agnew. He's out for the year, and got a hip injury. And I don't know if it changes their football team that much, if I'm being completely honest. I think everything you were getting on the offensive side with Jamal Agnew was a bonus, but it changes kind of like the entertainment value for the fan, because he was exciting.
Yeah.
66 yards on the run, some big-time catches over the first 10 games of the year. He dropped a couple lately, but the 2 returns were awesome early in the season. And quite frankly, he validated what they did in the offseason and the free agent signing. And Rudy Ford's been pretty good from that perspective too. But overall, their special teams has been awful. Blocked punt return, muffed punt last week when Agnew went out, kicking problems on and off for the first 8 weeks of the year, coverage problems at one point for a couple weeks in a row. The punter didn't show up on the field last week.
Yep.
I mean, this is a team, and Urban Meyer, this has got to irk him more than anything, is the special team stuff. Well, if you look at Urban Meyer, it's offense and special teams.
Yeah.
And both categories have gone just belly flopping, over the last month especially.
Yeah, and obviously they bring back, we didn't talk about this during the week because it happened after we were gone, but Jadon Mickens returns. Yeah. I don't know. Do you know if he's active today? Do you know anything about that?
I don't know that yet.
But
I would assume he would be because, he's really just going to slide into that role. So I think if you brought him in, you could certainly make him that way. I think he will be, yeah.
And, now granted, I'm not trying to, oversell this, but he did return a punt for a touchdown for the Jags previously in his career before he went to Tampa and won a Super Bowl. So I at least feel confident that he's not going to fumble the football when they kick a punt to him like happened last week after you saw Agnew go out. So I guess that's a small victory. But, yeah, the punter not showing up is still a question mark to this day. The special teams, as much as I've heard Urban Meyer say special teams in every press conference, needs to be a bit better. So got to figure that one out today. But, frankly, there's a lot of figuring out that has been going on for 12 weeks, and we still haven't really got any of those questions answered.
Well, listen, Logan Cook's a good punter overall.
If he gets out there.
Yeah, Matthew Wright has kind of settled in where
That's true.
He's not really getting a ton of chances. He's made some big kicks. He's missed like a 51-yarder, but it's nothing like eye-popping. Like every time he gets out there, it's a circus. And it was for really the last 2 years here in Jacksonville. So that's kind of calmed down a little bit. I think the return teams have done a better job. They've fixed some of the holes there. And really, I mean, they're not going to – you can't rely on dynamic return men anyway. And Agnew, outside of those 2 kicks, really hadn't done much in the return game, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he had 2 huge moments, but he really wasn't, as a punt return guy, wasn't giving you a lot. They had kind of figured him out. I actually thought they kicked to him way more than I thought they would overall, and he hadn't really done that much in the kick return game either.
Yeah.
So I don't think you lose that much with Agnew being out, other than a wrinkle on offense. Now, will they do that with a Tavon Austin or somebody, or even a Jadon Mickens? I mean, I don't think they'll put him out there, but maybe they would. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they now lose that element because Agnew was certainly a speed guy from that standpoint, where nobody was going to catch him, and he proved that in the Indianapolis game on the 66-yard run. One other question about Jamal Agnew. He's going to now miss the last 7 games of the year. Do you think he still makes the Pro Bowl based off what he did in special teams? Because nobody else has done that this year. Now, they still have time. But, I mean, nobody has been – and by the way, I do think his offensive ability, what he did, like when they throw the tape in and when the Jags send it in for the Pro Bowl and special teams, they put the return kicks, I think they should throw in the great catch against Cincinnati. I think they should throw in the 66-yard run. This guy did more than just return, so he almost feels like he should be a Pro Bowler. One other note, too, I say 7 games remaining, like the Pro Bowl list gets done like before that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they don't factor in every game of the year. I think he'll still be the guy as a Pro Bowler for the Jags and on special teams. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, barring that somebody else starts returning punts like crazy or kicks around the league, or I guess just in the AFC. But yeah, I think he should still be on the team, and I would throw in the film as well of him making plays, because when you think of kick return like guys, the way I think of it is like a weapon, and they don't always get used on offense, but I think that should be the position, or at least a new position for the Pro Bowl. Just call it a weapon position. And then you would have guys like Cordarrelle Patterson and Devin Hester back in the day and all that. But, yeah, I think he's got to be the front runner, and people are running out of time to return 2 kicks in a season because, frankly, it just doesn't happen. So, yeah, I think he's still the front runner, and he should get the nod as of right now.
Yeah, well, we'll see if he does. I mean, it would be nice because, it was pretty special what he did through the first 10, 11 games, especially on, I don't know. I mean, listen, Matthew Slater's always a special teams guy out of New England. And he's got, like, equity built up to be that guy. But certainly nobody did and made the impact that Agnew made in that regard. Hey, look at the Atlanta Falcons roster, and Dante Fowler Jr. comes back to Jacksonville. Dante Fowler Jr. is not a bad football player. Dante Fowler Jr. should not have been the 3rd overall pick.
Correct.
In the draft. There's a difference. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. People are like, he's a bust. Well, it's not his fault he got picked 3rd overall.
No, it is not.
I always said this about Tyson Alualu. Like, everybody's like, Tyson Alualu picked 10th overall. He's a bust. Well, he didn't ask to be picked 10th overall in the same draft as Tim Tebow was picked and all the rest. That guy has been a 12-year player or 11-year player in the NFL. He's a good football player.
For sure.
And if you can get that much out of a player, well, you drafted pretty well. Now, when you think top 5, top 10 picks, you want perennial Pro Bowler, All-Pro, difference maker. Alualu was never that. He was just a steady guy. Dante Fowler is not necessarily steady. I would say he's more inconsistent. But he's worked himself into a pretty nice career. He went to the Rams. Jags traded him away. They actually got a 3rd-round pick, if I'm not mistaken, in return. I forget who they turned that into. And now he ends up with Atlanta on, I think it was a 3-year deal. And he's not one of, like, the best pass rushers in the league, but he certainly is still a pretty good player that you got to keep your eye on here in Jacksonville in this game today.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And nobody's going to turn down getting picked third unless you were supposed to go first. But, yeah, I mean, you can't it's a tough thing to do, but you can't blame the player for getting overdrafted because it wasn't up to him. And look, it was an interesting way that Dante Fowler played out here in Jacksonville. But, yeah, he's somebody that you probably should look for on their side of the field because when you look at some of the names that will also be rushing the passer, he's the guy you find. Deion Jones is a guy you find just in general, but Dante Fowler Jr. is probably their best pass rusher. Grady Jarrett is something as well, but Dante Fowler Jr. is a guy that unfortunately you're going to have to look for, and if he ends up sacking Trevor Lawrence today, I'm sure that will go over well with the fans in the stadium.
Yeah, probably not. By the way, so Dante Fowler Jr. has 33 career sacks. Spent 3 years here in Jax, 2 years in Atlanta, 2 years with the Rams. And 33 sacks. He actually had 13.5 with the Rams. He's only got 5.5 in 2 years with Atlanta. He had 14 with the Jags. And I'll say this. Here's why I'm a little hesitant to say, it's terrible. And I'd say the same about guys like Leonard Fournette. The Jags went to the AFC Championship game that year and had the most special year that we've seen here in 15 years because of some of those guys like Leonard Fournette and Dante Fowler Jr. factored in. Dante Fowler Jr. in that game against the Buffalo Bills was fantastic. And I think he made plays in the Patriots game too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So he made impact plays down the stretch of that season when the Jags turned it on and went to the playoffs. That doesn't validate him being a third overall pick. When you have a third overall pick, you want it to last more than 3 years.
Ideally.
And one of the big problems the Jags have is some of their best players, we'll talk about this all week, Jalen Ramsey being one, is not with you for a second contract in 6 to 10 years. That's a little – if you can keep a guy for 6-7 years, well, then you're getting your money's worth out of that first-round pick, even if you eventually trade him, especially in today's NFL. But 3 years isn't enough. Like, you never win on who you drafted if you're only keeping a player for 3 years. But I will say he wasn't as bad as a player as people want to kind of say he was. He was super inconsistent, but he came up with some clutch plays in that season, and especially in the postseason, to help them have the best season they've had in the last 15 years. That's not lost on me, and I don't think it should be lost on everybody else. Again, not his fault he was picked third overall. He's played more like a player that probably should have been picked in like the second or third round.
Yeah, for sure. But, I mean, that's the way it worked. By the way, Brent, Quincy Williams and Colin Johnson were the picks for Dante Fowler. So that's
Quincy Williams and Colin Johnson. That's what they turned that into.
Yeah, so that's fun. As
that's
they're
not
both on
good.
different
And
teams.
by the way, the Quincy Williams pick was a reach pick, and Quincy obviously is with the Jets, and he played well early on, but he really hasn't played that well since. A couple other guys that you might know on the Atlanta roster if you're not familiar. Felipe Franks is like third-string quarterback.
Yep.
Former Gator. So he's still in the NFL. We've talked about Kyle Pitts and Jonathan Bullard, who will not play. He's out. And obviously you know about Fowler. A.J. Terrell is a guy that I think was drafted last year, right?
That is correct, yes, out of Clemson.
Yeah, and so what is eye-popping there is the Jags take C.J. Henderson, and they could have gone in. Now, listen, that draft, if you go down the list of corners in that draft, it's been hit or miss. There's been several guys that have had some issues, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yes, you are correct. But at some point it's going to get – well, it is old, that the fact that every single time somebody was picked, we can be like, oh, well, good thing the Jags picked so-and-so. But, yeah, Okudah went third in that draft.
Not doing much.
Right. Then Henderson, definitely not doing much. A.J. Terrell then went 16th. Arnett went 19th to the Raiders, so we know how that played out.
Yeah.
Jeff Glandy went to the Vikings at 31.
Gladney there. Yeah, TCU kid.
Yeah, that didn't work.
That hasn't played out.
Yeah, so
really so there are 5 corners in that first round.
6. Igbenogany to the Dolphins.
Okay. And he's been just okay, right? I mean, he was good last year, I think, for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's serviceable.
He's a nickel corner they picked.
Yeah.
And they drafted high.
And if you keep scrolling, by the way, you come to pick 51, the second round, where the Dallas Cowboys selected Trayvon Diggs.
Well, yeah. But by the way, you really take 5 or 6 of those guys, and you're like, all right, well, Okuda's still playing.
Mm-hmm.
C.J. Henderson looks to be a bust for sure. Terrell's been really good. So one guy really good. Who else? Who else did you mention? The Miami guy out of Auburn. He's probably okay. I don't know how bad or good. I don't watch him enough, but okay. And Trayvon Diggs now was really bad last year and has turned into a heck of a playmaker this year, although he's not shut down. Like Terrell, here's the interesting conversation. Would you rather have Terrell, who's going to basically shut people down, or you rather have Diggs, who's coming up with all these big plays? See, the fan would say Diggs on that, but the coaching staff probably say Terrell.
Yeah, Terrell, I mean, that's a good argument to make, and Terrell only has the 1 interception, but I like the shutdown part of it a little better because there are plays where you can very clearly see Trayvon Diggs as number 7 because he's chasing somebody to the end zone that he's not going to catch because he does get burned occasionally making the big plays. So that is an interesting call. I think I'm going with the lockdown there, but, that draft at corner was something. I'll just say that.
Well, it's interesting that so many people reached for corners there. It wasn't just the Jags.
And it didn't work. Most of these reaches didn't work. Henderson obviously didn't work. Okuda, is at least on the team. Arnett just got cut. Jeff Glandy's in jail, I'm pretty sure. So,
who's the other guy? Johnson? Is Johnson in the second round?
Yeah, he was a second rounder year.
He's done well, right?
Yeah, well, comparison to jail, or cut. He's like on the field and playing football, so yeah.
Yes, there we go. All right. But here's what, again, bothersome move. It felt like, this is when the fans feel like everybody knows more. It felt like the Jags reached for C.J. Henderson at 9. And all they simply had to do potentially is trade back, and still get A.J. Terrell.
Yeah.
Like they could have done that. And, again, that's so easy to say. But when you feel like, I can tell you that was so recent that everybody was like, did they just pick C.J. Henderson?
Yeah.
Really? Like, and so you don't even if you trade back or pick somebody else that draft, who the Jags could now have running around at wide receiver, who they could have maybe on the offensive line. Like go to 9 through 18 in that draft and see who the Jags picked, and then compound the problem with Chase on instead of a guy like Justin Jefferson.
Yep.
Or a different corner if they wanted. Like it's pretty maddening to do that, and especially since we knew that was such a big draft, and it looks like the Jags have swung and missed. They definitely swung and missed. They traded away their draft pick from last year. So they definitely swung and missed. All right, we got to head out of here. Who will the Jags draft next year? December draft talk is a real thing. We wait. Now, we do this segment each and every week anyway. Saturday stars that might play for the Jags next year. And so we're going to highlight a couple, but it's really starting to take shape now. The Jags are going to pick in the top 10 regardless of how many games they win.
Yeah.
And I say that because we know they're not going to go roll off 7 wins in a row.
We do know that, yes.
So the Jags are going to pick in the top 10. There's a real good chance they pick in the top 5. They are picking 3rd overall right now. Well, they can get themselves a really good player and one that had a huge day and maybe into the Heisman conversation as a defensive player, which reminds us of another Heisman Trophy guy from the same school from the defensive side of things. We'll be back on ESPN 690 Game Day Live. From the DUUUVAL House, brought to you by Phillips & Hunt Folio Weekly 2.0. The Empowered Kitchen is today's beneficiary of all the funds that take place here on this Sunday. Jags and Falcons coming up at 1 o'clock on Fox 30. It's countdown to kickoff an hour away on CBS 47 inside the stadium. But we're here until 11. Saturday Stars are next on ESPN 690.
Now, the First Alert forecast on ESPN 690. Today, mainly cloudy and cool with highs only in the lower 60s, but still a great day to watch football. Tonight, cloudy, then a cold front will sweep through the area, clearing out our skies overnight with temperatures staying chilly in the lower 40s. Behind the cold front on Monday, you can expect mostly sunny skies with high temperatures in the mid-60s. I'm meteorologist Alyssa Pedjick, and that's your Action News Jax First Alert forecast.
'Twas the season of cheer and joy filled the town, except for Scrooge with his perma-frown. The gift of a Peloton bike touched his soul without doubt. When your workout's a joy, it's a joy to work out. This Black Friday, get the original Peloton bike at our best holiday price ever, $1,495. All access memberships separate. Terms apply. See website for details.
The Weather Center is brought to you by Beard's Diamonds, where now you can save up to 41% off during Beard's anniversary sale.
Scott Graham here from Westwood One with a preview of Sunday Night Football and an important AFC matchup with the Ravens hosting the Browns. At 7-3, Baltimore leads the AFC North but is looking for their first division win. Last week, they escaped with a win at the Bears without Lamar Jackson due to illness. Head coach John Harbaugh after the game.
It's just a spectacular win. It goes to our guys, their ability to handle a sequence of events, their ability to deal with the circumstances that are challenging in the game, but also all week that they were dealing with, and not flinching. Next guy stepping up.
Baker Mayfield and Cleveland are now 6-5 following a win last week over the Lions. That puts them very much in the division race. Tom McCarthy and Ross Tucker will call all the action of the Browns at the Ravens on Sunday Night Football.
Get ready for the game with more details and preview at WestwoodOneSports.com. And remember to listen for the NFL right here all season long.
Have you wanted to speak a new language but thought it'd be too difficult or take too much time? Then try Babbel. In just 15 minutes a day, Babbel teaches you conversations that you will actually use. With 14 languages and lesson topics like travel, business, relationships, and more, you'll learn what matters most to you. Babbel. Language for life. Learn a new language with ease. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com.
Are you the parent of a 2 to 7-year-old? Listen closely for an exciting free radio offer. By now, you've probably heard of ABC Mouse, the Parents' Choice Award-winning online learning program that's actually changing the lives of early learners everywhere.
ABC Mouse is like a little one-on-one teacher. It has helped her so much.
Right now, we're offering a special radio promo to try it free for a month, but you have to go to abcmouse.com/radio to claim your free month. That's abcmouse.com/radio. Sponsored by Age of Learning.
Nights of Lights dazzles with more than 3 million lights in the historic district of St. Augustine. Now imagine doubling those lights as they reflect off the water during your tour with Redboat Tours. Avoid downtown crowds by boarding at Beach's Restaurant Marina at 250 Volano Road. Then sit back and let Captain Tony and Miss Jennifer take you on a tour you'll never forget. Don't settle for imposters. Make no mistake, Redboat Tours is St. Augustine's only USA Today Reader's Choice Best Boat Tour 3 years running. Book your Nights of Lights tours now at redboattours.com.
Quitting tobacco isn't easy. The good news is, Tobacco-Free Florida is here to help you quit your way by offering the free support and tools you'll need to succeed. Our AHEC cessation program offers Group Quit, virtual classes you can take from the comfort of your own home across every county in Florida. All you need is a phone, tablet, or computer. You may also be eligible to receive up to $400 worth of free quit aids, such as nicotine patches, lozenges, or gum. You aren't alone, and our group quit sessions can offer the support you've needed all along. It doesn't matter how many times you've tried to quit, now is your time to succeed, because now is the time to quit your way. So give us a call at 1-877-YOU-CAN-NOW to double your chances of success. Ask about free nicotine replacement options to help you quit today. This is your start to a tobacco-free life. No judgments, just help.
It is to a degree. My vision was a combination of pro style along with spread to take advantage of Trevor's skill set and what he's used to. And at times we do it. The biggest disappointment to me are the self-inflicted errors by, whether it be a penalty, whether it be a drop pass, a missed assignment. Those are, that's obviously not what I envision or what we expect. But the style of offense, other than the fact we're not having great success, I like the direction of combination of spread and then also pro style.
That is Urban Meyer. So, it doesn't sound like he is that anxious and critical of his offense coordinator, Darrell Bevell. Certainly of the execution. I'm sure those conversations go on. But the style and what they tried to do and all those things, I mean, he says, hey, we have a good plan. We just got to go out there and execute it better. I would say they have to do that. That's for sure. Brent Martineau, Casey Kurtz, ESPN 690 Game Day live from the DUUUVAL House, presented by Phillips & Hunt and Folio Weekly 2.0. The Empowered Kitchen is today's beneficiary of the charitable donation. Stop on by all day long here at the Teal House on the foot of the Hart Bridge. We're here until 11 a.m. Then we run inside for countdown to kickoff at 11:30 on CBS 47. All right, Saturday Stars. You do this each and every week. Casey compiles the list. Oh, there's some good ones now coming out of that rivalry weekend in college football. And now we're taking shape where the Jags are picking third right now in the draft. So let's just plan on them picking third, and they could get themselves a big-time pass rusher, it appears. I can't imagine both guys go off the board 1 and 2.
Yeah. So the way we've done this is I kind of move around and look at different guys, but after yesterday, we have to revisit Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan. He was all over, 7 total tackles, 3 sacks. And, yeah, I think there's question now that this guy could go number 1 because of the health of Thibodeau and all that, so you do have to worry about that part of it. Another part you have to worry about, I'm only half kidding, but I am half serious. Would they draft this guy from Michigan? I want to believe that they would, but, man, I hope they can, fix that in the war room if they get the opportunity. But I think there's a real chance this guy's not there. Hopefully they don't go 1-2 because this is a really good defensive draft. You have Stingley in there as well. So it's hard to predict that, but you would hope that one of these guys falls to the Jags. But, yeah, 9 sacks on the season, 2 forced fumbles. He recovered one of them.
I think he's up to I thought he was up to 13 sacks. Didn't he set a single-season record at Michigan?
Oh, yeah. It's 12. They didn't count in the 3 from yesterday.
12, okay, yeah. I mean, he had a monster game, and obviously he's got the high. It's hard to have a highlight reel play in the trenches. Well, when you bull rush the left tackle like he did, and everybody's talking about it on social media, Hutchinson and Thibodeau, keep an eye on those guys if the Jags draft early. Can never have enough. The Jags will go big in defensive ends and pass rushers. Hooking one of those guys up with Josh Allen, certainly a possibility, even though there's a ton of ways the Jags could go in the draft. All right, carry on.
Yeah, so I've looked at, like I said, I try to move these guys around. So the wide receiver we're looking at this week is Treylon Burks from Arkansas. Yeah, 7 for 129 and a touchdown on Friday against Mizzou. On the season, 66 for 1,111. He's also ran it 122 yards and a touchdown. So he's been explosive for Arkansas, who has a questionable offense, so that's a good sign. He's probably going to be a low first round guy, so he's a guy that you would look at if you can get him with the second round pick. Going to the defensive side of the ball, I should say. Ahmad Gardner for Cincinnati. He is a corner. 2 passes defended and 8 tackles on Friday against Eastern Carolina. 2 sacks, a forced fumble, and 3 interceptions on the season. He is one of the best players for Cincinnati, who I think against all odds might make it to the college football playoff. What a moment. Go Bearcats for no reason. Going back to Michigan, by the way, a guy that you would imagine will not be drafted by the Jags but needs some recognition after running for 69 yards and 5 touchdowns yesterday would be Hassan Haskins. Probably a little painful for Ohio State fans seeing Haskins running all over the field, since Ohio State had their own Haskins that was good for them but didn't work out in the NFL. But anyway, 169 yards, 5 touchdowns yesterday. 1,063 yards on the season with 13 touchdowns. Brenton Cox.
Let me stop you there real quick. I don't think the Jags will go running back, right? Not especially early. Maybe later on they'll have a bevy of 6th-round picks. So maybe you find somebody. But with James, I don't know what Carlos Hyde's going to be, but definitely with Etienne and James, I can't imagine they invest heavily on the running back side.
Absolutely. Brenton Cox is a guy who had 4 sacks yesterday, 8 on the season. He was a problem yesterday that FSU could not block.
Yesterday.
Oh, yeah, he was good. He There are good pass rushers in this draft, as we'd mentioned, the two at the top, and then Jermaine Johnson and so many other guys are going to be there. So he could stay and be the top pass rusher next season, but that is in question after you have 4 sacks in your last game of the season. You might reconsider that. And then on the quarterback side, not a lot of huge quarterback prospects. Sam Hartman, though, for Wake Forest has been good all season, 3,400 yards, 31 touchdowns. Wake Forest in the ACC championship for the first time since 2006.
Yeah.
So close, Brent. I was laughed at. People called in and laughed at me when I said NC State was going to win the ACC. I was so close to getting them in the game itself, but Wake Forest gets it done, so I guess I was right to be laughed at.
Yeah, well, I mean, Sam Hartman's a nice story, too. The quarterbacks that's the tricky part about either trading out of a spot if the Jags are picking, say, 4th or 5th or 6th or whatever it might be, currently 3rd. I'm just hoping that they get another win or two so we don't have to talk about them picking top 3, even though it might be good. But could you trade out, or could teams go after quarterbacks like the Lions? Are they going to get a quarterback and reach for a quarterback, or are they just going to go get a good player? It'll be interesting to see, but it's just not a quarterback-heavy class. You wish it kind of was.
Oh, yeah.
Because then that would help, because the Thibodeau and obviously Hutchinson, I'm a huge fan of Jordan Davis. I don't even know where Davis is projected to go, but do the Jags go get a pass rusher like Thibodeau or Hutchinson if they were to land to him, or should they really try to go after the interior of their defensive line? They're not going to go get a playmaker on offense that high in the draft, and I doubt they even go get an offensive lineman that high in the draft, though they could.
They could, yeah.
They could. So I just feel like that defensive front is where the good players and impact players are in this draft early, and I feel like the Jags' first pick will come on the defensive line.
I agree with you. If Hutchinson and Thibodeau are off the board, the names you watch are Jordan Davis, Derek Stingley, Jermaine Johnson, and Kyle Hamilton, who I think you like as well, the safety. And the outside option is Evan Neal. He's a right tackle from Bama. It's an outside possibility, but he's probably not going to make it past 5. And then the question will come in the trade down scenario, does somebody fall in love with Matt Corral or Malik Willis, which it would probably be Matt Corral. So the question is there to trade down, because right now you're picking ahead of teams like Houston and the Giants that would probably, and Atlanta as well, who might need a quarterback. So a lot in play for the Jags right now, player-wise and trade down-wise.
Yeah, I think a Cross, I think it is, from Mississippi State, another offensive lineman.
Yep.
Pretty highly regarded. So there are some different options, but I'm telling you, they're going to go big. They're going big. I'd be stunned if they didn't. There are a lot of nice players in other spots, but I think the Jags are going to go with a big player. That means in the trenches, I would say defensive tackle, defensive end, offensive lineman. I'd put a lot of money on that's going to be their first selection in the draft if they stay where they are picking. Hey, we're about 5 months away from the draft in Vegas.
Oh, really? It's in Vegas? Oh, that's right.
It is in Vegas, so 5 months away from the draft. That is your early look.
I might have to go. By the way, last early look, second-round pick, if Drake London is there from USC, if they don't run the card up there, Brent, I'm going to have a problem.
I like it. I can't wait for Shock Your Mock season coming up. But let's get through the final 7 games and hopefully a W here today, and hopefully the Jags will lose some draft position today. That's the idea. That would be a good. I do think the wins matter. But we did this. The Jags can get to 6 wins if they want, if they could, and still pick in like the top 7.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's very feasible this year with so many teams muddied up already at 4, 5, 6 wins on the season. All right, let's take a break one more time for me, and we'll come back. And, well, I think you'll help put a bow on the show, but I will too. ESPN 690 Game Day Live from the DUUUVAL House, presented by Phillips & Hunt. And Folio Weekly 2.0. We talk Jags and Falcons. Get you set for a 1 o'clock kick on Fox 30. Countdown to kickoff coming up on CBS 47 at 11:30. And we'll take you up until 11 a.m. right here on ESPN 690. The family of Action Sports Jax networks in play on a Jags Sunday when we come back on ESPN 690.
Cheap, climbing.
It's intercepted. Picked off of the 12. He will go down. He finds the promised land. Touchdown, FSU.
This is your home for FSU football.
Outside the numbers to the 10. 5, 3, 2, 1. It's a touchdown, Florida State. Intercepted. Picked off of the 33-yard line.
Noles win. Noles win. Catch live coverage of the Seminoles all season long, right here on your home for Florida State football.
Sponsored by Bono's Pit Barbecue. If you don't see a pit, it ain't legit.
I am one of thousands of women with metastatic breast cancer, or MBC,
which is breast cancer that has spread to other parts of the body.
I am living in the moment and taking Ibrance, palbociclib.
Ibrance 125 milligram tablets with an aromatase inhibitor is for postmenopausal women or for men with HR-positive, HER2-negative MBC as the first hormonal-based therapy.
Be in your moment. Ask your doctor about Ibrance and visit Ibrance.com.
Ibrance may cause low white blood cell counts that may lead to serious infections. Ibrance may cause severe inflammation of the lungs. Both of these can lead to death. Tell your doctor right away if you have new or worsening symptoms, including trouble breathing, shortness of breath, cough, or chest pain. Before taking Ibrance, tell your doctor if you have fever, chills, or other signs of infection, liver or kidney problems, are or plan to become pregnant, or are breastfeeding. Common side effects include low red blood cell and low platelet counts, infections, tiredness, nausea, sore mouth, abnormalities in liver blood tests, diarrhea, hair thinning or loss, vomiting, rash, and loss of appetite.
In today's world, there's a lot of ways to know what's happening. At Action News Jax, we make sure our local stories have more detail, so you get every angle that impacts you. We dig for answers because you deserve the whole story. Taking time to provide context so you're clear on what's really going on. Because we know information is thrown at you 24/7. And we want you to know that Action News Jax is local coverage you can count on.
I don't know about you, but I'm ready to let the good times roll. And by roll, I mean roll on home in a brand new Toyota, because Toyotathon is on at Arlington Toyota. Camry, Corolla, RAV4, Tundra, Tacoma. Arlington Toyota has 300 new Toyotas available. And with Arlington's 30-day exchange program and lifetime warranty with every new purchase, buying your new Toyota's more fun than ever. Toyotathon is on at Arlington, 10939 Atlanta Boulevard, or online anytime at arlingtontoyota.com. Visit arlingtontoyota.com/Toyotathon for full details.
We got to prepare. We need to have a good week of practice. We need to get back to playing smarter football, which I felt like we did for the most part through a 6-game stretch. We went 4-2. I thought we played pretty good. Like I said, we hit a little obstacle, but what we got to do, we got to get back to work. We got to play smarter. We got to execute better. We got to coach smarter. All the above, but it's going to start today out of practice. That's the way we prepare. As every week, you're going to have to deal with different issues, different schemes you're playing, different matchups, and that's life in the NFL. But we're excited to get back to work today.
That is probably Arthur Smith. And give me all the different coaches that got hired, and I think I'm glad the Jags didn't hire Arthur Smith.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, just like
good take.
Doesn't do it for me, man. Like, maybe he'll be good, but he's boring.
Uh-huh.
And I don't need my coach to be super exciting, but he's boring.
Yeah. Well, that sound right there was answer to the question of how do you prepare for the Jags, and I thought it'd be a good one, and he said that, and I was like,
really
well, I already
boring.
got it. Yeah.
And he had Derrick Henry, and they didn't think. Again, I think the Falcons misfired. I think the Falcons should have picked a quarterback in this draft.
Mm-hmm.
They could have had Mac Jones. They could have had
Justin Fields.
And I think they misplayed it. I mean, I understand they had a lot of money on Matt Ryan, but he's 36 years old, and he plays a game it's not played much anymore. The statue game isn't in the NFL. You've got to be able to move. Now, Mac Jones, you could argue, okay, you're going to pick that. Well, you didn't have to. You could pick Justin Fields, the hometown guy. And listen, Pitts is going to have a great career, and Pitts is a good pick. But if you don't have the quarterback, the next one, then what are you doing? I think they missed an opportunity in this class, and maybe they get somebody down the road. Maybe they are the ones that trade for Deshaun Watson or something. Who knows? But Matt Ryan is not at this stage of his career, and the style of game he has, just his overall talent, I think, taking you to a Super Bowl. So what are you hanging on to other than his salary? I don't fully get that, and I think they missed an opportunity. This Jags team, we know this. We've seen this up close. The Jags have done this many a times. They don't look down the road. They sometimes revisit. Tom Coughlin is like going back in time. You've got to be forward-thinking in this league and beat the curve, beat everybody to it. And, it might not look orthodox because you have Matt Ryan under so much salary. I just think they missed a golden opportunity. And I think right now Fields and Mac Jones are proving that they probably did miss an opportunity. Pitts, again, is very good. But you need a quarterback in the league. And so Arthur Smith, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of it. I love what they're doing. They're okay. They're getting worse as the last couple of weeks. Now they've played pretty good teams in Dallas and New England. So we'll see what they look like here today. They might beat the Jags today. I'm just still glad the Jags don't have Arthur Smith. Let's just say that.
Yeah, it's a good hearty take, Brent. I like it.
Well, there we go. I've got something for you, by the way, as we welcome everybody back. ESPN 690 Game Day live from the DUUUVAL House. I'm getting out of here in a minute, and then you can take everybody through the rest of the NFL for the final 5 minutes or so as I hustle inside for countdown to kickoff. I don't think I'm going to have to hustle here at the stadium.
It does not look like a lot of hustling will be done. Maybe a brisk pace.
This is going to be a bad crowd here in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And not surprisingly, I'm just saying, who's excited to see Atlanta play?
Nobody. Not even Atlanta.
No. Field Yates, to carry on to your pick of the day, the Packers. Since hiring Matt LaFleur in 2019, the Packers have lost just 8 games. In the 8 games following those losses, Green Bay has done the following. Gone 8-0, forced 18 turnovers, committed just 1 turnover, and won by almost 15 points. That's what the Rams are facing today.
And you can still get 2.5 points if you're listening. So
yes.
I don't get this one at all. I'm not complaining, but I'm just going to let you know if the Packers lose a football game, I'm going to need a raise because I'll need to pay my mortgage.
Baby. It's all about the toe.
Yeah.
I tell you what, Aaron Rodgers is so good, but I'm not sure LaFleur gets enough love.
Yeah,
It's
underappreciated.
easy to just say, and by the way, I think I've done it too. It's easy to say, LaFleur, whatever, he's got Aaron Rodgers. Well, you know what? Again, look up Minnesota. They've got all these guys, and they don't win.
Right.
Look up San Francisco, and they've had quarterbacks and players and this and that, and they haven't won a lot. And we give Kyle Shanahan a lot of credit. I'm not sure we give Zimmer credit. But point being is you don't always win games even though you have good players. And especially this amount of games, LaFleur's been unbelievable. It's got to be the Ashland pedigree in him. That must be it for sure. So, anyway, that's the big game really of the day, Green Bay Packers and Rams. And it's really impactful on, kind of the mentality going into next week's game. So what will the Jags look like? What do the Rams look like? Remember now, the Rams have looked awful the last couple of weeks.
Very
terrible.
Bad. Mm-hmm.
Now, they did have a bye week to try to fix it, and coming off bye weeks, teams usually perform better unless you're here in Jacksonville. So the Rams play the Jags next week. The Rams could be riding a 3-game losing streak and in desperation mode. Meanwhile, the Jags, what if they have a good performance here? Then we kind of go week to week with our emotions and say, wait a minute now. The Rams have lost 3 in a row. They're not playing very well. Jags coming off a good performance. Went 2-2 in the month of November.
Yeah, that's going to set us up for some pain. Yeah,
I can see it already. We're going to talk ourselves into next week. What could happen in L.A.? That will be. I almost can't wait for Jalen Ramsey week around here.
Oh boy. Oh my goodness.
Give me to 4:00 today so we can get Jalen Ramsey week going.
Oh boy. I don't disagree with you. Will be interesting. Would be more interesting if it was here in Jacksonville, but I digress.
Yeah, it would be something if it was here in Jacksonville, but it won't be. All right, I'm going to run out of here. Get going in TV. Countdown to kickoff 11:30 on CBS 47. 1 o'clock game on Fox 30. We've got our post-game show on the app, Action News Jax app, right after the game today. 10:30 on Fox 30, 11:30 on CBS 47 for Action Sports Jax primetime. So a full day ahead. And don't forget, Jags Report live from Sneakers with James Robinson tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. As well. Casey Kurtz will get it to the finish line here, and then on ESPN 690 later tonight, we've got the Sunday night football game, Browns and the Ravens. Casey, have a good football Sunday. Set your fantasy football lineups, and I hope you will at least win your Packers game.
Thank you, Brent. I appreciate it because if I don't win my Packers game, I'm in serious trouble for the rest of my life financially. But that's okay. We'll move on from that as Brent goes to do some TV work. Like he said, you can find him 11:30 on CBS 47. We'll talk about the rest of these games here real quick and some fantasy football. By the way, Brent mentioned the lineups. They're set. You know, when you got 3 games on Thursday, you got to kind of really dive into it. But a little breaking news, not really. It came through last night, and I didn't really notice it, but I noticed that my projected points went down a bit. Corey Davis doubtful for the Jets, so they will be down another weapon. But the Elijah Moore stock is at an all-time high. Zach Wilson will be back, and Elijah Moore and Zach Wilson haven't really been on the same page yet, so you have to see how that one plays out. But likely no Corey Davis opening the door for Elijah Moore. We'll just start at the top. Steelers-Bengals, a big game. Joe Burrow and the Bengals will be at home looking to make a statement against the Steelers, who, frankly, have not been very good. I don't believe in the Steelers. I believe in the Bengals for some reason. Give me the Bengals in that one. By the way, fantasy related, Pat Freiermuth will be the number 1 tight end for the Steelers. Eric Ebron will be out, and Big Ben and Pat Freiermuth kind of have a thing going, so he's definitely an option in regular, yearly, or season-long fantasy or daily. Panthers-Dolphins starts the games that might not be too great. That one will be in Miami. Not really sure where to go with that one. Dolphins are playing better. Panthers are playing better with Cam Newton as well, so that one will be interesting. Eagles-Giants, give me the Eagles all day. That one will be in New York. Sterling Shepard will be out. Kenny Golladay will play, but he just does not get the football from Daniel Jones. Saquon Barkley expected to play, but is questionable. Kadarius Toney questionable as well. So not sure who's going to get the football for the Giants. It might be Evan Ingram if you need a tight end streaming option. But Daniel Jones doesn't really throw it to anybody that consistently. Titans-Patriots, big game, but like I said, if you own a Titans jersey, that person is likely inactive today for the Titans. No A.J. Brown, no Julio Jones, no Derrick Henry. Missing guys on defense as well. Give me the Patriots and the points. Colts-Bucks, wish it was at 4. However, it'll be at 1, matching the Jags. Falcons game, that one's going to be very, very interesting. Like I said, Jonathan Taylor has been a monster, you know that. But the Bucs have not allowed people to run the football on him, so that matchup's going to be interesting. Vita Vea questionable in that one, which is a big part of the Bucs' run-stopping ability. Jets-Texans, it's up to 3.5 if you're interested in that for the Jets, plus 3.5. I'm leaning towards Jets 3.5. I'm not going to lie to you. Texans, I don't know. That's an interesting game just Texans-Jets. Number 2 pick on the line in that one. Chargers-Broncos open up the 4 o'clock window in Denver. It is hard to score in Denver, but Justin Herbert and the boys had it rolling last week. I believe in him again. Vikings-49ers, we talked about that one a little bit as well. 2 5-5 teams going in the same direction. Vikings just beat Green Bay. 49ers just obliterated the Jags right here in Jacksonville. That one will be interesting. 4:25 Rams-Packers. You know the deal. My house is on the line. Packers getting 2.5 points, as well as plus money on the money line. Browns-Ravens, you can hear it right here tonight at 8:20 on ESPN 690. Coverage will start at 7:30. The game will kick off at 8:20. Kareem Hunt will be back. Nick Chubb is active. Donovan Peoples-Jones will likely not play for the Browns. Jarvis Landry will play for the Browns. Seahawks-Washington on Monday night. We'll talk about that one tomorrow from 3 to 6 on Action Sports Jax. That one will be on ESPN 690 as well. And the one game I didn't mention, Falcons-Jags. I hate to say it, folks. Give me the points for the Falcons. -2 as it is right now. Shaq Griffin being out is going to be a problem, I believe. Although Russell Gage is wide receiver 1, I think Kyle Pitts has a huge day. And I think Russell Gage is a quality player. He can play. So it's, I think the Falcons win this game by more than 2. Let's just put it that way. That's going to do it. We're out of time here. ESPN 690 Game Day Live. Brent on the way to the stadium. Countdown to kickoff, 11:30. CBS 47. The game is at 1 on Fox 30. Post-game on the Action News Jax app. We'll be here from 3 to 6 tomorrow. Austin Lane, Brent Martineau, and myself. We'll break it all down. We'll talk to you then. Have a great day. Enjoy the football.
Slip and fall.